All right, all right, all right. What's going on, y'all? Welcome into Talkin Dawgs here on YouTube. I appreciate you guys for stopping in. I think we're going to have a good group in here tonight. I think a lot of you guys are obviously uh, pretty excited about what happened on Saturday. I thought it was a really good ball game for Mississippi State, and we're going to break it down and kind of talk about what went well for Mississippi State and where things are for the Bulldogs now heading into a really important ball game coming up this weekend. So, you guys want to throw in some questions, any comments? You don't have to ask questions. You can throw in your own comments. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. That's kind of the process that I use on this is very right now. There's not a whole lot of production value on this. I'm hoping to increase that in the coming months, but right now it's just me and you guys talking about Mississippi State sports. So whatever you guys want to talk about, we will. But we'll try to focus on Mississippi State and Texas A&M. Bulldogs win that one, 42-24. Is that right? Yeah, 42-24. Bulldogs take out Texas A&M. I thought it was maybe Mississippi State's most complete effort all season long, considering the opponent, considering the execution, and all that stuff. I mean, I thought it was excellent. State had some moments there where they sputtered. They didn't put four full quarters together, which is kind of you know a good thing to think about if you're a Mississippi State fan. If this team can ever put four full quarters together, this could be a really really good team, and I think they're really good right now. The LSU game, kind of the anomaly, in my opinion, as of right now, and that's got a chance to be proven wrong in the coming weeks with tough games ahead. But you have no choice but to believe that this team is a contender, at least in the top half of the SEC West. And it's going to be tough to beat a team like Alabama, of course. But after that, State's right there in the mix with some of those other teams, like Arkansas and Texas A&M. So and Ole Miss, obviously, who's undefeated right now. So anything can happen for this team. I think they're good enough that they can beat just about everybody on the schedule. Alabama is going to be a tough challenge. Georgia's going to be a tough challenge, but all the rest of those games are very winnable. And this is a huge stretch coming up. But on Saturday, 42-24, and you look at that, the A&M scored 24 points, and to me that was a little misleading. I thought State played really well on the defensive side of the ball. A&M got a touchdown late, kind of a garbage time touchdown. They scored a couple of touchdowns in the fourth quarter, but by that point, State was in full control. And I mean, it was just I thought the defensive effort and the playmaking ability that those guys showed was just tremendous from Mississippi State. It was kind of reminded me a little bit of that 2014 defense and those defenses back then that they would bend a little bit, but by the time they got inside the red zone, that defense was making plays. They forced two turnovers inside the red zone. They blocked a field goal inside the red zone after they had the offense given Texas A&M the football deep in Mississippi State territory. I thought the defense was incredible in that possession, and then Emmanuel Forbes just made a great individual play that turned into a touchdown for Decameron Richardson. So defense was outstanding. A&M put up some stats in the game offensively, but I thought that for the most part, State controlled the game on that side of the ball. Max Johnson, 203 yards on 926, but he was constantly pressured by Mississippi State's defense. I thought that was the best job that Zach Arnett's defense has done this year in affecting the quarterback. 4 sacks, 3 of them came on that one drive before halftime, and that the one sack there to end that drive was a fumble that that possession could have changed the course of the ball game. If A&M is ever able to score a touchdown on that possession, it feels a lot like that LSU game last or 3 weeks ago when Mississippi State scored and then allowed LSU to just drive right down the field and score right before halftime. State's defense getting a stop right there was really demoralizing for A&M, and I thought they did a really good job of limiting the big plays that A&M had. HA and the running back, 111 yards rushing on 16 carries. He had a really big game, but the work that they did on the quarterbacks really kind of affected the ball game where the direction of the game went. And then you look at State on offense, 329 yards passing for Will Rogers, which that is the most passing yards in a game against A&M this season. They had the best passing defense in the SEC coming in. And, it hasn't been the toughest of schedules that they've played, but still, I mean, you're talking about a team that is giving up 153 yards passing, against most teams. That's impressive. And State had 329. They had over 100 more yards than what A&M had given up previously, and they had only given up 3 passing touchdowns all year, and they give up 3 in this one. But I thought the difference was what State was able to do running the football. We've talked in here before. State just being able to run the football consistently with their running backs to pick up 5 or 6 yards from their running backs is really going to change the dynamic of this offense, and that's what they did. 24 carries, 144 yards, one of the best rushing games of Mike Leach's tenure here, and they averaged 6 yards a rush out of their 3 running backs. I mean, that's stout. You had almost 8 yards a rush from Jaquavius Marks. Simeon Price came in there and gave you 3 big runs for 7 yards a rush. Dylan Johnson continues to run hard. He had 68 yards rushing. So just being able to show that you can run the football, I thought was huge, and the offensive line was great too. So we'll break down a lot of that stuff as we come through here, because I know you guys got some questions, and we'll kind of break down a lot of that stuff as we go. So I'll go ahead and get in. We'll start with Jordan. How concerned are you with Watson missing the first half next week against a physical quarterback like Jefferson? It is concerning a little bit. I would feel a lot worse about this if they didn't have the performance that they had from J.P. Purvis. I thought he really stepped up. You lose to Sean Page last week, and I thought that was a big loss for State's depth at linebacker, which I think he's going to be back relatively soon. I don't think that's going to be a serious injury for him. But the work that you saw from J.P. Purvis, I thought was just huge. And, Buki goes out in the third quarter. The game really could have shifted there, just like it could have right before halftime. You got to stop. It looks like you're about to get the ball back on a turnover on downs, and then all of a sudden you get that targeting call, which was completely uncalled for and was the right call. And I thought Purvis came in and really performed well, and the defense didn't allow that to really kind of steamroll them. I thought that after that, being able to get the stopper right there and hold them to the field goal, and then the next possession after that fumble, being able to get that stop and block the kick, the game was over. So seeing what we saw from Purvis when he was presented with an opportunity, I feel a lot better about Mississippi State's linebackers going into this first half. But you kind of just have to survive that first half without Buki. Just don't have any serious issues at linebacker or injuries or like that. And if you're able to do that, I think they'll be fine. It is going to be a challenge. This is going to be one of the toughest rushing attacks that State faces this season. I mean, you're talking about an offense that gets a lot of different players involved in the running game. They put some guys in motion on jet sweeps. At wide receiver, they can get the ball in their hands. Of course, Jefferson is an absolute load. I mean, he's somewhere to me in between Cam Newton and Chris Ralph. I think he's a little better skill-wise, in my opinion, than Chris Ralph, and he's not nearly Cam Newton, but he's somewhere in the middle, which makes him a pretty good player. And then you have a really good running back in Sanders. They got a good offensive line. This is going to be a challenge, but State, I feel like, has done a good job scheming it up so far this year. And I thought Arnett had a good game plan last year against a really good Arkansas offense. So, we'll see what happens, but that is going to be a challenge. Josh, a lot of people missed out on a great time Saturday. I agree. I was really surprised there wasn't a better crowd than that. I thought it was going to be a better atmosphere. I thought it was a good atmosphere, but I thought it was going to be a little bit better. Hopefully you get a charged up atmosphere on Saturday. That's a tough time, 11 a.m., but we've seen some good atmospheres at that time. I thought that 2014 game against A&M was one of the best daytime atmospheres that we've ever seen, and that was at 11 a.m. So, hopefully this kind of got people back on board and you start to see a much bigger crowd on Saturday, because I think this is huge. I think this is really big here to get a win. You have to. I feel like you have to come out of this 3-game stretch 2-1, and to get to 2-0, and then you're playing with house money against Kentucky. I think would be huge. And this is an Arkansas team that's going to be reeling a little bit, and we're going to see what they're made of on Saturday. We're going to see if they start to get discouraged or if they start to rally around themselves a little bit. And I tend to lean towards them rallying here because they have some veterans on that team. They have a great coaching staff. Barry Odom's going to have them coached up on the defensive side of the ball, and the same thing for Bryles on offense. It's just, they don't really get discouraged a whole lot. So it's going to be huge for Mississippi State to come out and get a good lead early in that ball game probably and force Arkansas to start doubting themselves a little bit. Zachary, is it just me or did DCAM quietly play his best game as a Bulldog? Man, I don't know if it was quietly. I think that was absolutely his best game. I thought it started on the first possession defensively. They swung that pass out to A-Chain, and he made a great open field tackle. That was one of those plays that if he doesn't make that tackle, I think that A-Chain probably is going to score on that play. I just think if he slips out of there, he's scoring. And he makes that stop, and instead of a big gainer right there and possibly a touchdown, you're forcing a punt on that first possession. That was a great play. I think he did the same thing on third down the next drive. And then, his coverage has gotten much better. His tackling is excellent. He made the big play on the blocked kick. I've really liked this kid since State got him late in the process out of Louisiana, and we were really high on him. He was kind of an under the radar guy, and late in the process gets an offer from Tennessee and Mississippi State. We threw 4 stars on him because his film was so good. I mean, he is a freak athlete and can really run. And I just think, we should have known this. And I think we did to an extent, but in the spring and in the fall, he has locked down that spot. And Marcus Banks, who came in highly touted out of Alabama and I thought had been playing pretty well in practice, he couldn't pass him. And I think that speaks volumes of where DCAM was and now where he is. He's going to be a household name, I think, at cornerback. This is going to be your next big-time corner for Mississippi State, and you're starting to stack those guys now, and that's pretty good for your cornerback recruiting to have a Cam Dantzler followed by a Martin Emerson followed by Forbes and then DCAM Richardson. You're going one after the other here of guys that I think are going to be all NFL players and probably all playing at the same time. So you saw a little bit of that athleticism and that speed on that return. Mississippi State is blessed with 2 really, really good corners. And I think Banks and Nicholson on the bench have a chance to be pretty good too. Ryan, I really think we can beat UGA. I think this could be one of those games we never forget. I remember playing them a couple of years ago, and their defense was gassed. Yeah, they have not been very impressive in the last 2 ball games. I moved them out from number 1, and they got moved out on both polls, I think, from number 1 to number 2 and passed by Alabama. They just haven't looked good the last 2 weeks. I think this is a very, very talented roster for Georgia, but they're showing some chinks in the armor a little bit. I'm not going to go ahead and say State's going to win that game, but I've never thought that was a game that was unattainable. I think that's out of Alabama and them, I would say that is the more winnable ball game, and especially being at home. So we'll see. That's a few weeks down the road, but we'll see how things transpire. Austin, been on the Sweet Dreams bandwagon ever since I mentioned it on Thunder and Lightning. Yeah, I give a lot of credit to our guy, the professor on the board he's the first person I saw bring that up, and immediately I was on board with that. It just flew through my head. Like, imagine in the fourth quarter, especially if Mississippi State had the LED lights, which I'm determined to make that a thing. But a light show in the fourth quarter with that beat from the Sweet Dreams remix with the cowbells all in unison. It's just to me way more of a jolt inside that stadium to have music like that instead of Don't Stop Believing. which I think that they're doing a really good job of placing "Don't Stop Believing" later on in the fourth quarter and still incorporating that somehow. I think the in-game stuff and the atmosphere has just been phenomenal this year for Mississippi State, and they figured something out. And maybe what they figured out is hiring Red Hobart, because I think he is very much a major reason that this stuff's happening. The atmosphere of the games has just changed tremendously, and that's why I think more people need to be experiencing these ball games. It's great to sit at home and watch on your couch and enjoy your own beverage and your own food, but there's really nothing like being there in that atmosphere. And Mississippi State is making it more difficult, I think, to sit at home. I think they're making this more fan friendly and more of a great opportunity for fans to enjoy themselves. So it's been A+ so far all the way around. Jordan, A&M only had about 100 total yards at the half. A lot of their production was in garbage time. Yeah, and they were starting to kind of gain traction on that possession right before the possession that they fumbled. Um, I think it was the second quarter, maybe, when that happened, and they were starting to gain some traction. A-Chain was really moving the ball down the field, and then he fumbled. I just didn't think they could ever get in a rhythm. They put up 136 yards rushing and 252 passing, but it never really felt like their offense was gaining just a ton of traction. They had a small window right before that block to do something, and they couldn't do it. And I thought a State's defense really deserves a lot of that credit. I thought Zach Arnett did a great job scheming that up and defending it. And they gave up some big plays in the game, but they'll take that. I mean, that's how this defense works. There were a couple of big plays given up. Nothing that I can remember for a long touchdown or anything like that. But A&M did have some plays, but I thought the defensive scheme was just excellent. Oh, Josh, O-line looked good with changes. They did. I was really impressed with that group. In fact, I made them my MVP on my MVP story tomorrow. I just thought that, considering the circumstances, whenever you lost Dollar Bill last week and you've thrown in Nick Jones from left guard to left tackle, he's starting his second game ever at left tackle. You bring in Stephen Lasoya, who's never started a game at Mississippi State. I thought those two guys did a great job. I thought the right side was just about flawless, and Cam Jones and Cole Smith. I mean, you gave up hardly any pressures in this game. Will Rogers had to clean pocket the entire ball game for the most part. No sacks. There was at the first part of the ball game, there were some issues up front, and we talked about it on Thunder and Lightning a little bit. I think there might have been some simulated snap counts. We saw that last year a couple of times with the air raid, and that there were some issues against Kentucky, I think, with that. And we saw false starts and things like that from what happened there. And there was some talk that was happening again yesterday. And if that's the case, that could have been the culprit. But it got fixed, and by middle of the game, that offensive line was just cruising. I thought they did a great job, and that's not an easy defense to block. DJ Durkin's a good defensive coordinator. They have 4- and 5-star talent across the board on that defense. To be able to pick up those blocks, and I don't think it's just the offensive line. I thought it was wide receivers. I thought it was running backs. Jaquavius Marks was incredible blocking. The wide receivers are great blocking on the perimeter. I thought everybody executed, and that's what you have to do in a game like this. And everybody did their job. Ryan, Neil Price said one of the biggest surprises from fall camp was just how much our offense was running the football. I think this has been the cards for some time. Yeah, and that was one of the things during camp, I asked Woody about that, if there was going to be more of an emphasis on running the football, because it was prominent in practice. We saw a lot of runs in practice, whether it be just the dive plays or even a little bit of speed option. They ran a lot of that. It just seemed like they were incorporating it a little more than usual. And he said that was kind of that was their goal, was to run the football a little bit more. And you look at let's look at the numbers. this year for State running the football. I mean, I haven't compared them with the last 2 years, but I can guarantee you that they have been better at running the football this year than they have in each of the first 2 years. Let's see. Here we go. So, Bowling Green was the only game they didn't rush for 20. They didn't rush 22 times. They came out and threw the ball 42 times in that game and ran it 11. But in the other games, there's been an emphasis on run the football. They ran it 34 times against Memphis. They ran it 24 for 106 yards against Arizona. They ran it 22 times against LSU for 75. And, they started off really well, but that kind of tapered off. And a lot of that, they would have been over 100 yards if Will Rogers hadn't been sacked. And then Texas A&M was their best game yet, 24 for 144. I mean, that is a recipe for success in the air raid. These numbers don't have to be through the roof. They don't have to come in here and run the ball, 35 times for 200 yards. They don't have to do that. But if they run the ball for 6 yards a carry, like they did against Texas A&M for 144 yards, I can almost guarantee you that they are going to win the game. I just can. I feel like that is kind of the key, is just to show that you can do it, because defenses are going to have to respect that. And that's a good Texas A&M defense. The State was kind of gashing at times. And again, I'll give a lot of credit to the offensive line for that. I thought they opened up some big holes, and the running backs are running hard. They had 2 plays for lost yardage, I think, running the football. Simeon Price lost a yard. Dylan Johnson lost a yard. That's it. Everything else was positive yardage for State. They were moving the chains. They were moving the pile. So great job by State. And I think that is just kind of the start of this offense evolving a little bit in the SEC. Kelsey, thoughts on Justin Robinson after seeing him yesterday? Looks like he could be a playmaker. Yeah, he had a good camp. He was kind of up and down in the spring, but he was just learning a little bit. But his camp was really good. So it's been kind of a surprise to not see him on the field. But yesterday he was outstanding. He's got 3 catches in his first 4 games for 43 yards. And then yesterday, Will Rogers found him 6 times. And I don't know what to make of the receivers rotation right now. I'm not really sure, what it is, what's the rhyme and the reason to it all. But it's some different guys stepping up every week. I mean, Ra Thomas had a really rough game last week against Bowling Green. 1 catch for 14 yards. He dropped a couple of passes. He just was not great. And then yesterday went off 5 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown. Guys like Ra and Justin Robinson are difference maker type players. They're guys that Mississippi State has not had at wide receiver very often. And getting them on the same page is huge. And, Caleb Ducking has been outstanding. Caught another touchdown yesterday, has 6 touchdowns in 5 games, leads the team in touchdown receptions. State has so many different options out there and so many different kind of players. I mean, you look at Rufus Harvey and Tulu Griffin, and then you compare those guys to Ra Ducking and Justin Robinson on the outside. I mean, there's just it's gonna be tough when those guys are all on to defend that. And everybody out of that group made a play yesterday, a play or two. The one that I would love to see get going is Jaden Wally, who I can't understand what's happening with him right now. Against LSU, he had 2 catches for 16 yards, 2 for 12 against Arizona, and he didn't have a catch yesterday. So I don't know what's going on with Jaden, but that's a guy that you really want to see get it going. Zach, is Purvis better in coverage than Watson? I'm not sure. I mean, I would probably give Watson the edge there just from the overall athleticism and also just the experience that he has. But I feel like Purvis can still, keep you in the game. I don't think he's going to do anything that's going to be a big detriment to that defense. I mean, he hasn't played a ton on defense, but you're still talking about a guy that's been around for a while. I mean, he's been around now for several years. Redshirt junior. He's just now getting healthy and just now getting his opportunity. So I think he'll be able to help State on Saturday. Josh, what is the word on KJ Jefferson's injury? I don't know. I think there is a lot of concern on the Arkansas side. I'm not sure what it was. I don't know if it was a hit to the head or something. I want to say I read something from Sam Pittman that he had taken a shot to the head or something. And if that's the case, I mean, they got to be really careful with that, especially with what's just happened with Tua with the Dolphins. But definitely something to watch. I would be a little surprised if he didn't play just because there hasn't been just a ton of smoke about him not playing, but definitely something to watch. Scott, is Mark still limited? I feel like I didn't see him playing his normal snaps. Probably a little bit, but I thought he did a great job when he was in the game. And again, I mean, I was just so impressed with the block that he had to spring Simeon Price. I mean, that was just, to me, that was just super impressive. And, like I said, had seven carries, 54 yards yesterday, 4 catches for 20. I think Dylan was getting most of those reps, but they shared a lot of them too. So I think he's fine. I think he's back on the mend, and he looked healthy yesterday. Watson Boyd, are we seeing Leach begin to understand you must run the ball in order to ultimately maximize the air raid? I think there's something there. I think that they've put a little more emphasis on that. And I don't know if he was just refusing not to run those first 2 years, or if he was just not comfortable with the running game. The offensive line was kind of getting used to themselves. You had 2 young running backs that I think have really developed. You're putting more trust in those guys now. You have a lot of experienced players on the offensive line. You have a ton of experience from your running backs. Will Rogers can now dissect the defense a little better and knows when it's time to call a run play. So I think it's just kind of the evolution of the offense as a whole at Mississippi State, because they have run the ball in the past. I thought Texas Tech, he ran the ball probably more than he has in any other place. So, I mean, he's not against the running game, but I just think you're starting to see everybody kind of evolve here for Mississippi State in that aspect. Mason, is Arkansas's pass defense as bad as people say? Yeah, they have not been good, and a lot of it is, I think, injuries. They've had a couple of defensive backs that have gone down for the year. I think some guys that were seasoned, they're veteran guys, so they have not been great. Their front is solid. They have some really good linebacker play that can defend the run. And, this is a team that a couple of years ago, they defended State's passing attack and rushing attack as well as anybody that played them. I thought last year State had some more success in that game, and I think that they'll be able to move the ball and score points on this defense too in this one. But, yeah, I mean, the passing defense has not been good for them. So it's going to be interesting to see what Barry Odom dials up, because you got to think he's going to try to do what he can to kind of mask their deficiencies there. Jason Forbes is the best hands on the team. He's got a case. If you put him at wide receiver right now, I think he could make some plays for you. That wouldn't shock me at all. He's got that playmaking ability. It's kind of wild. Kyle, is Georgia 2022 like Alabama 2010? I'm trying to think about that Alabama team. Is that the team that lost to Utah? I can't remember. I don't know. I mean, the last 2 weeks, they're not playing up to snuff. I don't know what's going on with them, but they were untouchable the first few weeks, and now they've struggled against Kent State and Missouri in back-to-back weeks, and very easily could have lost that game on Saturday night. They were fortunate to find a way. Bryce on that Arkansas pass defense. People talking about Arkansas's pass defense being so bad, it actually makes me more worried. Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but uh, to me, it's just I feel like this offense is at the point where it should be able to have success against anybody. They should be able to move the ball down the field and score points. And a perfect example is that A&M defense. I think that A&M defense is legit. So I mean, I think they'll be fine in this game. I think the biggest concern to me is defending that read option because it's so hard when it's done right. It's so hard. You got to have somebody spying KJ Jefferson, and then you got to be able to defend Raheem Sanders and those guys too. I mean, it's just if a guy can effectively run that read option as a quarterback, it's one of the hardest things to defend when you have that many options. And we saw that with Dak Prescott. We saw it with Chris Relf from Mississippi State. We saw it with Nick Fitzgerald. I mean, State was as good as anybody in the country at running that read under Dan Mullen. And sometimes when I see State get down to the inside the 5, I miss those. I miss those things because you get to the 1 yard line and you're trying to punch it in, and you start thinking, "Gosh, if you just had a Nick Fitzgerald or Chris Relf or Dak Prescott right here, you would not be denied." And same thing on those fourth and shorts. That's one thing when I look at this offense that I wish State had. Scott, why was everyone saying send 3 and drop 8 is Leach's downfall, but A&M fans are upset with Durkin, who did a drop 8 and will carve them up? Because the main thing is people just didn't give this offense time to grow. Um, when you're fully engaged in this offense, Will Rogers, everybody else, and you're doing it the right way, it's very difficult to defend. So you can take your chances on man-to-man defense, and State can just win those one-on-one battles, which they've done a lot when they've seen man. Or you can just take that they're gonna push the ball down the field and get inside the red zone, and we just have to stop them inside the red zone, which I think some teams have done too. But if you're doing it right on offense, you're going to move the ball regardless, and it can be 5 to 10 yards down the field, and you're slowly moving it and methodically, like Mississippi State has done the last couple of years, or it can be big plays. And I think what you're seeing now is Will Rogers is able to fit that ball through tight windows for plays longer than 10 yards. And then when you decide you want to run man-to-man defense on the outside, he's beating you down the field with Ra Thomas and Caleb Ducking. So you're starting to see a quarterback and several players around him that are fully locked in on this offense. And it's going to be much more difficult for teams to defend when you have a quarterback that can run it effectively and you have everybody doing their job. And that's what we saw on Saturday because, again, I think that A&M's defense is really, really good. And that's one thing that they can be proud of. And State had a ton of success as time went on. And I think, running the football helps. That you're not going to see nearly as many teams dropping 8 like that when State's running the ball 6 yards a pop. When you have your running backs picking up chunks of yards, you cannot afford to put 3 men up front and drop everybody back. So that's going to change how teams defend Mississippi State, I think. Zach, thoughts on Leach's wedding advice he gave post game? Yeah, it is. He's been asked that like 10 times. Like it's kind of the go-to question to Leach, but I enjoy that stuff. He's not a guy that's going to be super engaging when it comes to football questions. He just seems really kind of bored with that. But when you start asking him that off the wall stuff, like he lights up. And we get more from him sometimes after the press conference, asking him about Better Call Saul or Yellowstone than we do in the press conference when we're asking him how the offensive line did. I mean, he's not a guy that really wants to talk ball a lot. So when you throw those questions, that's when you can get some really good sound bites. And I get it. I didn't have a problem with Alyssa Lang asking that. I mean, she had just asked 2 football questions. He gave her these, kind of, mundane responses, and I thought that the wedding thing was kind of fun. Michael Starr, why do Arkansas fans call us Mud State? I don't know. I've never heard that. Is that a thing? Mud State? I don't know. I don't understand what the mud thing is. You know, Jerrion Ely last year started talking about he doesn't like Mississippi State because it's muddy. I don't understand that. I haven't seen a ton of mud at Mississippi State. I've seen a lot in the Grove. The Grove gets really muddy. Adam, can Leach try to get the targeting call reversed? I mean, I'm sure that the conference looked at it. I mean, it was targeting. He launched his head into the quarterback, and you can't do that. So, I mean, they've probably gotten some kind of ruling from the conference or whatever. But I mean, it was the right call. You can't do that. The play was basically over. State was getting off the field, and Bookie's too important of a player to do something like that. So it's unfortunate, but I'm sure he'll learn from it. Oh, let's see. Josh, crazy how Wally just fell off. Yeah, I'm not ready to count him out, but he's got to get it together. I think there's too many good players out there for him to kind of fall back. He's going to have to push here. Cohen heard KJ Jefferson could possibly be out this weekend. It's possible. We'll have to see. Gus, what's up, Gus? Is Coheed still relevant? Coheed and Cambria? I haven't heard them in a while. You know, I still listen to their old stuff. Yeah, me and Gus used to really be into some Coheed. I haven't heard. Maybe somebody else has been keeping up with them. I haven't heard them a whole lot lately. The Suffering and Welcome Home and all that stuff. That was such a killer album. Cohen, seeing LSU now 2 weeks after beating us, they aren't as bad as everyone thought. State is still better, and we should have beat them. But if they were replayed now on a neutral field, score prediction. I think State wins that game on a neutral field. I especially think State wins at home. I thought that just playing on the road, they were kind of overwhelmed with that. And I think that I'm going to go with the thought process that loss made Mississippi State better. I'm not going to dwell on that game. I don't want to look back. I don't want everybody looking back and saying State should have won that game or we be this and that. I'm just going to go into this with State is not the team that they are now without that LSU game. I think that's the way to handle it. Let's see. What do we have? Jackson, are we in Austin Williams' muff and a couple of self-inflicted wounds from being 5-0? Yeah, absolutely. I think. I don't know. I don't know if they don't win that game if he just catches the ball. I mean, LSU might end up winning the game, but that changed the entire game. And the offense for LSU had done basically nothing. And you gave them life. You gave them basically 5 yards to score, and they haven't been able to really push the ball outside of one possession the entire night. I really feel like that was probably the nail in the coffin for that game. But, yeah, I mean, you win that game, you're 5-0 right now. People are thinking a lot differently about this team because I think a lot of the national media wants to believe in Mississippi State. I mean, you look at Vegas. State is favored every single week. So people and you look at these models that people have, the FPI, our friend Josh Pate, his model that he has consistently had State inside the top 20. The FPI has had State inside the top 20, and I think as high as top 10. So the models that everybody has says State's a really, really good team. And it's just about now basically putting it all together for the Bulldogs. And I think they took a step in the right direction against A&M. Blake, not asking you to pick an upset, but do you think we can at least go into Bama and be competitive? I think they can. I don't think this Bama team is, the team that they have been. They do have some lulls on both sides of the ball, and this is still going to be a really, really tough ball game. I think just what I want to see in that game is I want to see Mississippi State score some points. I want to see them be able to move the ball down the field on Bama and score touchdowns because that's something we have not seen Mississippi State do hardly at all since Nick Saban's been there. So just try to be competitive. Just go in there and realize, and that's 3 weeks down the road, but realize that you're a pretty good team too. I mean, you go out there and play your game and see what happens. Let the chips fall where they may. It's going to be a tough ball game, but I just want to see State show that they've made a lot of progress in this offense to the point where they can score touchdowns in Alabama, because I don't think they have. I might be wrong, but I don't think they have since Mike Leach has been here his first 2 years. Jackson on Mud State might be due to Starkville originally being called Board Town due to the muddy streets. Could be. I don't know. I didn't even know that's why they were called Board Town. So you learn something new every day. JC Forbes Elite, I think he's somewhat inconsistent. I haven't seen that. I think he's been pretty darn good. You don't see him give up very many big plays. I don't know what his coverage grades are, but he's been pretty good this year. And he's definitely one of the best playmakers at corner in the country. Reggie Leach will continue to rotate his receivers all year long. Justin Robinson and Antonio Harmon will be future stars. I agree. I think they got some big body guys out there. They got some speed. I mean, they have a ton of weapons this year and moving ahead. I mean, I really like what they got. And I don't know where Antonio Harmon was. If somebody has some news on that, you can let me know. But I don't think he was out there the other day. But I like him a lot, and they got a ton of big body guys. I think those guys are going to be ready when Caleb Ducking leaves this year. You should have kind of a seamless transition with those guys, and then Ra Thomas. Scott, do you think Wally not getting as many reps, I guess, is because the other defense is keying on him, opening up other plays? Could be a little bit. I just don't think he's playing his best football right now. I mean, you look at his stats: 10 catches for 97 yards. Does have a couple of touchdowns, but this guy's a fan favorite, one of my favorite receivers to watch, and I just think he's in a funk right now. And you need to get him out of it because he's a guy that can really help you. Josh, like or dislike willingness to go for all the fourth downs? I like it if you get creative with it. I mean, you can't do what you did at LSU and basically run the same play 4 times. And Leach even admitted that post game that he could have called that better. But I like it. You gamble a little bit because really the odds say in a fourth and short situation, around midfield or a little across midfield, the odds say that it's better to go for it in that situation. So I think that's what you're seeing a little more from Leach than you have seen in years past with Mississippi State on fourth downs. They'll go for it. And, 4th and 5 and in around midfield or, about the 40-yard line, the opposing team, you're probably going to see Mississippi State go for it. I think they converted 1 or 2 in that game the other day. Watson, what's the biggest key to winning this weekend? Limiting what Arkansas does offensively, I think. Getting them off the field. You cannot let them run wild in this thing. Let's see what State's done rushing this season. State's given up over 100 yards 3 out of the 5 games. And they gave up 21 for 129 against Memphis, 38 for 207 for LSU, 31 for 136 for A&M. And against Memphis, that really came on like 2 or 3 big plays. LSU, they got a lot of yards late and some of it on scrambling. So State's just got to be careful and know that there's another quarterback here like Jaden Daniels that can really hurt you, and that's KJ Jefferson, who might be the toughest load to defend at quarterback in the entire SEC and maybe even the country when it comes to run the football. And he can throw the ball too. So I don't think this wide receiver group is as good as last year for Arkansas, but they still got a good offense. and they were able to score some points on Alabama. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but State's just got to make sure that they are limiting what Arkansas does offensively and trade, touchdowns for field goals. If you have to win inside the red zone with a field goal attempt, I think that's really the most important thing. Alden Reed, Boardtown Pizza Hits. It's really good. I wish more people would go check it out. I mean, I feel like we need some more marketing on Boardtown Pizza. It's kind of a hidden gem. Great pizza, really cool spot right there in the Cotton District. I mean, what's not to like? Robin, what's the word on Dollar Bill? Haven't heard, and we won't hear. It'll be one of those things where we just have to watch out for him on Saturday. And I don't know if he'll play or not, but I think State's in solid hands. I'm more interested in when he gets back, what does State do on the offensive line? Do they keep Nick Jones at left tackle? Do they move Dollar Bill to right tackle or guard? I mean, what happens there? Because I think that Nick Jones is showing you some things here. He might be a good option at left tackle. It'd be really interesting to see how that goes. But obviously, you want Dollar Bill on the field. He's been playing a lot of football over the years, and he's a veteran. I mean, I think State's a better offensive line with him. Cohen, I don't think KJ will hurt us as much as Daniels, not nearly as fast, and he runs more on design calls than scrambling. Yeah, maybe so. I mean, he's it's still going to be a tough offense to defend because of the read. What makes it so difficult is, you have two options there. The quarterback can hand the ball off, and the running back can go one way, or he can pull it in while the defense is crashing in on him, and the quarterback can roll out to the other side. So that's what makes that offense so difficult to defend. And they can pull it out and throw it down the field. I mean, it's just. I think he is a tougher matchup than Jaden Daniels, because if you keep Jaden Daniels in the pocket, I don't think he's very dangerous. I didn't think he was a very good passer. He made some bad decisions. I think KJ Jefferson can hurt you a little more with his arm than Jaden Daniels can. Maybe not as much as a scrambler, but I think that he's a guy that's going to be very difficult to defend. But, we've seen it before with teams that run that read option. Mississippi State's had some good game plans for it. And maybe not as much with Zach Arnett, but a few years ago with John Rice Plumlee at Ole Miss, I thought State really defended the read well with that, with Bob Shoop's defense. I think this defense will be able to scheme something up to at least try to limit it. Josh, Jet versus Jefferson should be good football. Yeah, Jet's going to be big in this game. You're going to have a big game from him. But I need to go see how that thing turned out last year. I know Arkansas had a big game from Burks and some of those guys at receiver. Well, let's see how they did against the run. If we can pull it up here. I mean, that game, I thought State defended pretty well. They got up 31 points in the game, but 10 of them came in the first quarter. I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown until the fourth. They got up 2 field goals in the second and third. I thought they defended it really, really well until late. KJ Jefferson, 19 and 23 for 191 with a touchdown. Let's see. He had 11 carries for 14 yards. So there you go. State really kind of bottled him up. They had a 100-yard rusher in Dominique Johnson. Raheem Sanders, who's their running back this year, is 8 for 26. So whatever game plan Zach Arnett used in that one, he needs to use it again. And I'm just looking at stats on the defensive side. Jet Johnson had 5 tackles. Tyrus Reed had a big game. I think State's linebackers are going to be huge in this game, just defending the edge and also up the middle. But State's got a really underrated defense. The numbers might not say it, and I haven't looked at the total defensive numbers lately. The numbers might not say it, but the defense is really solid. I mean, they have a ton of really good individual players. They might not have a ton of NFL talent out there on the field. This isn't a defense comparable to 2010 or 2015, 2014 as far as NFL players are concerned, but it's still a really, really good defense. They do their job. They fly around. They tackle really well. So I think they'll have a good game plan. Cohen saw A&M run out all those 5-star wide receivers this weekend. Didn't see any of them that look any better than Malik Neighbors. Yeah, he's really good, and he proved it there late in that ball game against LSU. Moose Muhammad had a good game against State from A&M, but they've got some issues there. Noah Nye-Smith anymore, and somebody's got to step up, more than one person. And so far, they don't really have anybody that's done that at wide receiver. You can't just put the game on the running back's shoulders. Got to have somebody to step up beyond that. King, according to Arkansas sources, KJ Jefferson's injured worse than previously thought, so he's questionable. Yeah, he is questionable. I don't know how serious it is, but it's obviously a game changer if he is unable to go. You're talking about a guy that's been playing in the SEC now for 3 or 4 years and is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. If he's not able to go, that's tough. And to me, I would want them to be at full strength coming into this, because you don't want to hear that excuse if you win that ball game that the quarterback was out or whatever. You want them to be at full strength. One thing that I thought was interesting is Hornsby, I think, is their quarterback. He didn't play when Jefferson went out. It was Cade Fortin, who went 4 for 10 for 35 yards and had 1 rush for 9 yards. So this offense is completely different if they're unable to have KJ Jefferson in the game. I don't know what the issue was there with Hornsby, but it would be really tough for Arkansas if that happens. King went back and rewatched Kentucky versus Ole Miss. Kentucky's multiple touchdowns better than Ole Miss. Maybe so. I thought they really gave that game away on Saturday. You had two missed extra points, missed field goal that was makeable, a safety, and some of that, give credit to Ole Miss, but some of that is self-inflicted wounds. They got to get rid of the ball and that safety. You got to have a better presence on that strip sack late in the ball game that sealed it. You have a legal procedure or legal motion or whatever on the wide receiver on the play that they scored the touchdown. It was an absolute joke from Kentucky, and that's why it's really hard to go all in on Kentucky football this year. It's just. They're talented. They have some talent out there. I feel like they got a good coach in Mark Stoops, but there's just something about them I just don't buy them. Next week's going to be a big game with State and Kentucky, especially if State's able to win this week. That's a game that they really need to get, and the State has not played well there. Kentucky's offensive line may be one of the worst in the SEC. I'm a little surprised by that. They've been really good on the offensive line in recent years, and they're just not – they don't seem to be very good this year. I thought Ole Miss really disrupted things up front yesterday. So, I don't know. There's just not a ton of great teams in college football this year. You had Kentucky number 7 in the country, and that was questionable. But there's just not a whole lot of teams to put up there. Outside the top 5, there's not a bunch of teams that I look at and I say they're really, really good. There's just not. That top 5 is pretty solid. But, you look at Georgia and they're struggling with Missouri and Kent State. Who knows who's good this year? It'll sort itself out, but, we'll see how it goes. All right, any more questions? This has been probably the best live chat we've had. Probably the most numbers we've ever had on here. You guys have been great. I know you guys are excited too. King, if State beats Arkansas and Kentucky, could we possibly be top 10 heading to Alabama? Very possible. I think if they beat Arkansas, they could possibly move inside the top 20. You beat Kentucky on the road. I mean, you're going to have some people really sipping that Kool-Aid if that happens. It's it kind of depends on who's in front of them and if they lose. But I think they're definitely a top 15 team if they beat Kentucky. But I think there's some people, like I said earlier, that are really high on Mississippi State that are kind of waiting for State to really take off to jump fully on board. And I think I predict if they get to that weekend with Alabama and they're sitting there at 6-1 or whatever, I think State's going to be possibly the talk of college football. You got Mike Leach, fun-loving guy. You'll start to see stuff that, like you saw at Washington State in 2017. People will start talking about Will Rogers as a Heisman dark horse. I think that stuff will really start to pick up, and that's how close State is. State is very close to that stuff happening, in my opinion. You get a win this weekend, and that train really starts to be moving downhill, and then we'll see what happens. But eight wins is still very much attainable. That's what a lot of us predicted preseason. They are still on track for that. They're exactly what some of us predicted at this point. And you win a couple of these games, and then you start thinking 9 wins and possibly 10. But like I said on the show today, this is truly a situation where Mississippi State has to take it one game at a time. The schedule is too difficult, and this season has a lot of implications on it, I think, for Mike Leach and the buy-in from the fan base and all that stuff moving forward. I really believe that State just has to take care of business week in and week out. And then by the end of the year, if you're doing that, you're going to be right where you want to be. And this is a really good team, guys. I really believe in this team. I really believe that they have a chance to be special this year and carry that over in the next year with some of these guys coming back. So I like what Mike Leach is doing. I think that, you've got a great coach in Mike Leach, a guy that is as good as anybody at building a program over the years. And he's proven it now at 3 stops. He's been successful at 3 Power 5 spots. The question to me isn't, can he be solid or, can he get Mississippi State to bowl games? It's how far can he get Mississippi State? Is Mississippi State going to be a 6-7 win team each year with a possibility of winning 8 every now and then? Or are they going to be a team that can be consistently 7 or 8 wins and on a good year 10 or 11? That's going to be the biggest question for Mike Leach, because I don't see this program falling apart under Leach. I think he's too good of a coach for that to happen, and we haven't seen anything over his 20 years as a head coach that suggests that could happen. I think State's in a really good spot. Now the question is, can they take that next step? They missed an opportunity to really start to take that next step against LSU, but time is not complete. They still have opportunities now moving forward. So that's really the big challenge here for Mississippi State moving forward, is winning these games that take you to the next level, beating Arkansas and Kentucky and going on this 3-game stretch with all wins heading into the back half of the schedule. I mean, that's what takes you from just okay to a really good team and a contender in the SEC West. King, I hope we have 60K in Davis Wade. We'll see. We'll see what happens. That's up to the fans, man. I mean, the football team has done what they had to do the last 2 weeks after losing LSU. The atmosphere has played its part. Mississippi State has done its job in trying to attract people. It's just up to the fan base now to decide, hey, I'm going to go to the game, and we'll see how that goes. It's been tough getting people in the stands everywhere, and especially at 11 a.m. But when you have a game like this that's so important, I think, to the season, I feel like you have an initiative as a fan to make it to the game and make it a great atmosphere. David, same thing. We all need to be there at 11 a.m. I agree. I think, you guys doing your part really takes it to the next level. Captain America, USC, Penn State, OSU. How good are they? I think Ohio State or Oregon State, I guess, is probably who you're talking about. Oklahoma State. I think that they're solid. I think Penn State's pretty good. I think USC's pretty good. I think they're just the next tier. I think you have Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State are probably the unquestioned top three. And even though Georgia's not played well, they are too talented and too well coached to just kind of fall apart. I feel like they're going to be fine. Alabama's going to be fine. I think those are your three best teams. Then you have that next tier with Clemson and Penn State. Tennessee might be creeping in there if they keep it up. Or Oklahoma State's been solid. And then then you have the next tier and then the next tier. So I don't think there's a ton of separation between like 7 and like 15, and then there's not just a ton of separation behind that with the rest of the teams, the top 25. It's just hard to find some really consistent teams right now. Ohio State's probably been the most consistent team, but I question their schedule in comparison to some of these other teams, which I say that, and Georgia's struggled with Kent State, so I don't want to be a SEC homer on that. Josh, wish people would give Leach more time. We went from run 80% to pass 80%. Yeah, and I think that people are starting to see that it takes a little time with this program because things are starting to come together. You're starting to see why things usually work for Mike Leach either in year 3 or year 4. You're really humming. Washington State was kind of the exception because they had some turnover and didn't really have the talent. But Texas Tech, really good in year 3. I think this is easily his best team in year 3 here. And we've seen this team progressively get better. You might not have seen it from, a ton of wins and losses from that perspective last year. But even though they did go from 4 to 7, but I thought the team was tremendously better. And now you're seeing them improve on last year and looking like a more finished product. And I still don't think they're a finished product. I think this team can play much better moving forward. And they need to play much better because you got Bama, Georgia, Arkansas, Kentucky, Ole Miss still on the schedule. That's 5 teams right there that are going to be very difficult to beat. And then you have Auburn, who's kind of becoming a dumpster fire. And then East Tennessee State. You got to think those 2 games are wins to get you bowl eligible. But your thought process now, it goes beyond bowl eligible. You're trying to take that next step as a team and be competitive and prove that you can compete inside the SEC at a really high level. So it's all about taking the next step this year for Mississippi State. And to do that, you got to beat teams like Arkansas on Saturday. So on that note, it's been a great chat with you guys, an hour long with, consistently over 50 people in here is just phenomenal. I appreciate you guys for stopping in. This is just something that I like to do with you guys. I like to chat it up with the fan base and talk to you guys, get your thoughts on things. It's not even about me answering a ton of questions as much as it is bouncing some things back and forth with you guys. So I really enjoy that. And I appreciate you guys for subscribing to this channel. Most of you got me over 1,000, and I'm very humbled and very appreciative of that. That was my goal from the start, and now I'm just trying. Well, let's build this thing up. Let's do more with this. The production value is not great right now, and we'll figure that out. But I appreciate you guys for being here, being a part of this. I want to ask you guys. I've been thinking about my buddy Hardy. Was in a wreck on his bus. I think he said today that his bus driver was in tough shape in the hospital. They all went to the hospital as well. He had a few injuries that he had to check out, and he's got to sit out for a while. So pray for our guy Hardy, huge Bulldog fan, good friend of mine, and I would appreciate you guys thinking of him. He's a great dude. He does a lot for Mississippi State on the road, so be thinking about him. I hope you guys have a great week coming up. Big week for Mississippi State. Get in the stands on Saturday at 11 a.m. Make that a great atmosphere. I think that'd be fun to watch. Should be a great ball game. But I appreciate you guys. Go check us out over there at 247. Pick up a Starkville Daily News newspaper if you're out and about in Starkville. And go check out our sponsors on Thunder and Lightning as well. And also, if you're not listening to Thunder and Lightning, make sure you're subscribed to that. We had the biggest month in August in the history, or in September in the history of the podcast. It was incredible. The numbers were unbelievable. We blew any other month out of the water. So I appreciate you guys for listening to Thunder and Lightning as well. And if you haven't checked that out, go listen. Go to wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, whatever, and go subscribe to that. Brian and I really enjoy doing that, and we're hitting a new level. I mean, we're hitting record numbers right now, and that's because of you guys. So we appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great week. Get some rest tonight. Hit the week straight on, and we will see you on Saturday.